Begin with the Mishnah on Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Beis, the first Mishnah towards the bottom of the page. Chametz shenafla olav mapeles. A chametz, you have chametz that a wall collapsed on top of it. Now it's covered with rubble. Harehu kimavur. This chametz, it's like destroyed and gone from the world. You can leave it there over Pesach. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel says, Kol she'ein hakelev yochel lechapes achrav. This is only if it's buried deep enough under the rubble that a dog is not going to go search for it. Then I say that it's kemuvur min olam. Rav Chisda says regarding this Mishnah, but v'tzarech sheyivatel b'libay. However, it is necessary to do the bittul for this chametz, even though it's kemuvur, it's like it's completely removed of the world, but the halacha of bittul chametz still applies. So there's a big machlekes rishonim what Rav Chisda is saying. Some rishonim say, if you look into Rashi says that Rav Chisda that says that you have to do bittul is a takana midrabanan. When the Mishnah said that it's kimavur, it's like destroyed from the world, it means that it's mamish, like it's burnt, like it's gone, because the Torah says la bayira bayimotza, shouldn't be found, shouldn't be seen. Chametz that's buried deep enough, it's not bayimotza. So minat Torah, it's completely gone. Elamai midrabanan, there were geyser, as Rashi says, what happens if this rubble is removed over Pesach and it gets uncovered, and then the chametz gets exposed, so you might come to eat the chametz. But minat Torah, it's gone. So this v'tzarech sheyivatel b'liboy is all gzeira midrabanan. Other Rishonim, however, disagree. The Alter Rebbe brings both opinions in Shulchan Aruch, and other Rishonim say that no, when Rav Chisda is saying v'tzarech sheyivatel b'liboy, what he's saying is that minat Torah, the chametz is not kemuvur. It's only with the Rabbanon that we're not afraid that he's going to come to eat it. But minat Torah, the chametz exists in his possession, in his property. So therefore he has to be mevatlet, not to be even by Rabbi Matzah minat Torah. Elamai, usually in addition to bittul, there's a takana of bedike that you also have to remove it from your premises, not to come to eat it. What the Mishnah was saying, harei kemuvur, is that additional takana with the Rabbanon of bedike and beer doesn't apply because it's under the rubble. But the tzarech sheyivatel is actually minat Torah. Oh, those are the two opinions Alter Rebbe brings in Shulchan Aruch. Alter Rebbe actually says that there's an afkamina between them. What happens if you have a case, we had before the Gemara mentions, where you have rubble where it's dangerous to go and uncover the chametz. If a person forgot to do bittul, and then Pesach arrives and he can't do bittul anymore, as we know, after the Zmana Isser, bittul is not effective b'chlal. So now he didn't do bittul, and the chametz is left there. Does he have to go and uncover and remove this chametz from his house, even if it's a situation where it's dangerous? How are you going to remove it? You're going to have to hire professional workers and pay them to remove it. Says the Alter Rebbe, if we're going to say that minat Torah it's kimavur min ha'olam, so it's like it doesn't exist b'chlal in your house, so then, after the Zman, if you forgot to do bittul and now it's dangerous to remove it, you can leave it there. You don't have to pay hire workers to get rid of it. But if you're going to say that when the Mishnah said kimavur, it only meant that midrabanan it's kimavur, but really minat Torah you have to do bittul, and you did not do bittul. So the chametz is there in your reshus, and minat Torah you're being over by yirah by your matzah. If you forgot to do bittul, after when Pesach comes, you can't do bittul anymore. You're going to have to hire workers and pay people to get rid of that chametz. This is the nafkamina that Alter Rebbe talks about there. This is in Siman Tov Lamed Gimel in the Kuntres Achron. Let's go on to the Gemara. Tane kama chafisa sakelev. So we learned in the Braise how deep does it have to be buried under the rubble that a dog can't reach it or doesn't go to look for it. Shloisha tvachim. If it's 3 tvachim deep, so then a dog doesn't go look for it. This that Shmuel says, ksafim, if a person is being given money as a pekadon to safeguard for somebody, so you have to put it in a safe place. Where do you keep money? The only place where it's safe, that no one will take it, steal it, and so on, is if you bury it in the ground. Does it have to be buried so deep as well, 3 tvachim, that nobody should come to get it? Or it doesn't have to be buried 3 tvachim. Here, regarding a dog and chametz, the dog smells the chametz, it has to be 3 tvachim deep. But regarding money, maybe it doesn't have to be buried this deep. Here, the chametz has a reach, it has the smell that the dog senses, and therefore being a shloisha tvachim. It has to be 3 tvachim deep, so the dog shouldn't take it out. Over there, by the money, the point is that it's covered and it's not exposed to anybody to see. So it doesn't need to be buried 3 tvachim deep. So the kama, when you're safeguarding money and you're hiding it in the ground, how deep does it have to be? You dig just a tefach deep, and you put the money there, that's good enough to hide the money when you're safeguarding it for someone.
So Rav Shimon Gamliel was just explaining, not arguing?
Yeah, that's what it looks like. And we passed like Rav Shimon Gamliel as well, correct. He was just, it looks like just adding to the Tanakama how deep it has to be. Zok the Mishnah starts a new subject now regarding Truma. Ha'oichel Trumas Chometz bePesach. A person ate Truma, which is Chometz on Pesach. So now, simply, if you're eating Truma, which is Chometz, the Kayan owns the Truma, right? And you ate his Truma on Pesach. Simply, that Truma that you just ate from the Kayan, did you take away any value of him? Does this Chometz have any value on Pesach? None. Nothing at all. It's asabah chile, it's asabah hana. You ate something from the kayin that has no value whatsoever. Should you be obligated to pay the kayin? Did you take away anything? No, l'chayda not. Yet, what does the Mishnah say? If you ate trumas chometz b'pesach b'shoigig, if you ate it b'shoigig inadvertently, then meshalem keren v'chaimish. Then you have to pay. You have to pay a keren, the principal of what you ate, and an additional fifth. So Rashi explains the reason for this. When it comes eating the truma from a kayin, it's not only an issue of gzeila. You stole, it belongs, the kayin is the owner, and you stole something from him. If it would be an issue of gzeila, the chometz says asabahana, you didn't steal anything from him. But there's another issue here. The issue is that the truma has a certain kedusha, and you took it away from the kayin, and you have to replace and give him back this holy truma that you took from him. And therefore, it doesn't depend on whether it has the value or not. Rashi brings the pasuk, which the Gemara is going to be based on, where it talks about returning it to the kayin. It says, "V'chamishisa Yosef olav v'nasan l'kayim es hakodesh." From that pasuk you learn out, when you pay a kayin back, the truma, you can't pay him back in cash. The truma is typically grain or fruits or whatever it is. You have to pay him back something which the truma could be chal on. That grain, you have to pay him back actual grain or fruits that you took from him. So what do you see? That the idea over here is not just geneva, that I stole from the kayin and have to give him back the value of what I stole. You have to actually pay back the truma itself. So it's a completely different halacha. It says this is not related to gzeila. This is a halacha that you have to pay back. You violated, you took something from holiness, and you have to return it and replace something of the kodesh that you ate as a kapara for yourself. So therefore, even though it has no value, but mitzad the halacha of truma, you have to return the same measure that you stole to give it back to the kayin. And therefore, even on Pesach, when it's chametz and it has no value, you have to return it. You have to pay the keren and the chaimish. B'meizid, however, if you ate it from the kayin, b'meizid, so now pater mit tashlumin, it's on Pesach, it's chametzdik, so you're going to be pater from paying, umit mei eitzim, and you would also be pater. Rashi says, Tmei Eitzim means if this truma that you ate or used was truma tmeya and the kain couldn't eat it, so the only value that it has to the kain is that it could be used as fuel, as wood for fire, but because it's Pesach and therefore you're not allowed to have hana of it either, you can't use it as fuel either, so therefore you're going to be pater mit Tmei Eitzim. So as Rashi explains, this whole halacha, that truma is different than regular gzeila, and there's a kapara that you have to pay back and replace the truma that you took, regardless of its value, is only b'sheigig. When you take it b'sheigig, then there's the special halacha of truma, which is different than gzeila. But if you steal it, you take it from him b'meizid, so then it's the same like any gzeila. So if it has no value, so then you're not obligated to return it to him because it's chametz.
This is a shagig mitzad Pesach or shagig mitzad truma?
Mitzad truma. Good question. Mitzad truma. Shagig, as Rashi says, meizid shehizid b'truma. I feel a shagig b'chametz, even if mitzad shagig b'chametz he was a shagig. Yeah. So that's the basic pshat in the Mishnah that Rashi explains. Although we'll see soon in the Gemara, there is an alternative pshat in this Mishnah, but this is the first pshat the Gemara says that Rashi quotes here in the Mishnah. So the Gemara Tanana. So first the Gemara is going to bring a Mishnah that it says in Masechta Trumas, benegate to the whole inyan of stealing truma from a kayin. The Gemara is going to discuss this concept of truma, how it's different than regular gzeila, and then we're going to come back to the Mishnah. So we learned there it says, Ha'oichel truma b'shoigig, a person eats truma b'shoigig, mishalem keren v'chaimish. So you have to return the truma itself, the keren, the principal, and also an additional fifth. Echad ha'oichel, echad ha'sheisa, whether you ate the truma, you drank it, if it's liquid, echad ha'sach, or you take truma, you use it to anoint yourself with it, which Rashi says is similar to drinking, has the same halacha. Drinking is like eating, so it's all part of what it says in the pasuk, ki yoichal kodesh b'shgaga. Rashi quotes the pasuk that you eat the kodesh b'shgaga, so then you have to pay back a keren and a chaimish. Echad truma tmeya. This halacha applies whether what you took from the kain b'shegig was truma which was tamei, ve'echad truma tahira. Whether it was truma that's tired, it doesn't make a difference. Mishalem chaimish. exactly. It didn't work there. Okay. Echad Truma Tahira, Mishalem Chaimish, whether it was Truma which was Tahir, so you have to pay a Chaimish, as it says in the Pasuk, that you have to add a Chaimish. And then we also learn out another interesting thing. The Chumsha. Sometimes you would have to pay a fifth of that fifth. As Rashi explains, what this refers to is, if someone ate from the Truma, and now he has to pay back the Keren and the Chaimish, but then he went and ate up that Chaimish itself. So besides the Keren of that Chaimish that he has to pay, he also has to pay an additional fifth of that fifth that he just ate up. Okay, so this is learned out from the fact that the pasuk says v'chamishi soy, it's read v'chamishi sov in a plural term, so therefore you learn out that you have to pay the fifth of the fifth as well. So the shaila the Gemara has is ibaya lahu. This is the fundamental shaila of our sugya here. Kishahu mishalim, when you're paying back the truma that you ate b'sheigig, and as we pointed out, this is not similar to regular gneva. You're paying it back as a kapara for what you took from the kayin, from the kodesh that you took. So you're paying this back. How do you evaluate this that you're paying back? Lifi mida mishalim, do you have to pay back the measure of the amount of what you ate? Oy lifi dami mishalim, or do you pay the value of what you ate? And the Gemara is going to explain exactly the scenario of when this question applies. So let's say you ate truma. In the beginning, it was worth 4 zuzim. And then now, when it comes the time you want to pay back, so now it's only worth 1 zuz. So now the question is, how much do you have to pay back? So if you pay back 1 zuz, the kohen is getting back the same amount as what you took, the same measure. Only 1 zuz it will get you the measure that was before worth 4 zuzim. However, as far as value is concerned, you're not returning the 4 zuzim. You're only giving back 1 zuz. What would be the halacha in this case? Is this the case that the ibaya applies? Over here, would I say that maybe it's enough for you to pay back 1 zuz and not the 4 zuzim? Says the Gemara, in this case, lo tibayalach. In such a case, here the question does not apply. The vadai kedemei kadam mishalim lefidamim. In such a case, you definitely are obligated to give back the value of the money of 4 zuz that you stole in the beginning. Why is that? Didn't we say that maybe you only have to give back the actual measure? And now the same measure of grain I can get for 1 zuz. So who says I have to pay back the full value of the 4 zuzim? So the Gemara says, no, in this case there's no question, and the reason is, the loy gara migazla. Even if it's true that by truma there's an additional stringency, there's an additional halacha that you have to pay back as a kapara, and you have to add a chaimish to that. But you're not less than a gazlan. It doesn't mean that when you steal from a kayin, you're not a gazlan. You are a gazlan, just like anything else that you steal from anybody. Elamai. In addition, there's a halacha also by truma that even if it has no value, you still have to pay back as a kapara because of the kodesh of the truma that you took, and you have to give it back. But a gazlan you are, so the basic requirement of paying whatever you would have to pay by a gazlan still applies. Now, what's the halacha by a gazlan? If you steal from a gazlan and when you stole it, it was worth 4. And now the same item went down in value and it's only worth 1. So what do you have to pay back? Do you pay back what it was worth in the beginning, the 4 zuz, or do you pay back only the 1 zuz that it's worth now? So by gazlan it says, the Tanan, kol gazlana mishalme kishas gzela. By a gazlan, you have to pay the value that it had at the time of the gzela. If you stole something at the time of the gzela, it had a value of 4 zuz, don't return the same item now because you can get it cheaper. If now you can get it cheaper, so then you have to pay the 4 zuz and get a more expensive item. You have to pay back the value that it has at the time of the gzela. Rashi quotes the psukim over here that it says by gzela. First of all, by gzela, it clearly says you don't have to give back the same measure. By gzela, you have to pay back the value. That's what you have to give back by gzela. And if you have the item itself that you stole, you have to give back the item itself. But if you don't have the item itself, so then you have to give back the value of it. And the value that you have to give back is according to the value that it has at the time of the gzela itself. The Pasuk Rashi quotes is Asher Gozal, K'moshe Gozal. You have to give it back like it was then when you stole it. So in that question, we wouldn't have a shaila. Truma is no less than gzela. When does our question over here apply regarding truma? The question would be whether we would be more stringent than gzela. If you stole from the kayin this truma b'sheigig, and when you stole this grain, let's say, it was only worth 1 zuz. And now it's worth 4 zuz. So what's the halacha here? What's going to be the din? Do I say lefi midah mishalem? You have to give back the exact same measure. So now you're going to have to pay 4 zuz to buy and get the same measure to give back to him. The amalei or damrinon lei, we say to this person, griva ochal. Griva is a measurement. Griva is 1 sa'ah. So you ate this measurement, griva mishalem. You have to pay back the exact same measurement, even though value-wise, you're going to be paying more to pay back the same measurement. But over here, the Torah says, lefi midah, you have to pay back the same measure. I mentioned before, the pasuk is that you have to give back the nasan lakayin es ha-kodesh. You have to give him back not money, you have to give him back actual produce or grain that could be chalanit, the kedusha, and therefore you have to give back also the same exact measure, even though you're going to have to now pay 4 zuz. Or no, you pay the value of money and you buy back for the kohen. True, you have to give the kohen not cash. You have to give him produce that the kedusha of the truma could be chal in it. But how much though? Only lefidamim based on the value of what you stole. Bezuzah achal, when you stole it, it was worth 1 zuz. Or bezuzah mishalim. So now when you pay back, even though you have to pay back the produce or the grain, you have to give back only in the value of 1 zuz. So this is the shaila over here. In other words, it's clear that when it comes to paying back truma that you stole b'sheigig, it's different than regular gzela. You can't pay back in cash. You have to pay back the actual produce that you stole. However, the question is, how much? In a case that when you stole it, it was worth 1 and now it's worth 4, are you going to have to pay extra to buy back the exact same measure, the same midah, the same measure that you stole? Or as long as you're giving back the same value, that's enough? Rav Yosef, Tashema, so Rav Yosef brings a rai from the following brayse. It says, Ochal greigeris. A person ate dry figs of truma. V'shilam loitmanim. And he pays back the kohen dates. He's not paying him back the dried figs. He's paying him back something else, dates. Tavai olav bracha. He should be blessed for doing this. Rashi says, dates are much more expensive and a much better item than dry figs. So he stole dry figs, the shegig we're talking about, and then he pays back a better quality, a better fruit, dates. Tavei olav bracha. He should be blessed for this. So the Gemara now explains what's the pshat. Why should he be blessed for this? If you're going to say that he has to give back the same measure of the amount that he stole, so therefore he should be blessed. He's actually ending up paying back in the value more than what he stole. Because the ochal griva, the greigeris, he ate a measure of a griva of dried figs, the shav zuzah, which is only worth 1 zuz, the kiyav griva de tmarim, and he's paying back the same measure of dates, the shav yarba, which is more expensive, and it's worth 4 zuz. So if you have to give back the same measure, and he chose better quality fruits to give back, so then he should be blessed for returning more. But if you're going to say that this guy is paying the same value of what he stole, you don't look at the measure, you look at the value. So he's paying back the same value that it's worth. So amai tovi olav bracha. What's the special thing that we say that this person should be blessed for giving back the dates? Bezuzah achal, he ate dried figs in the value of a zuz, and bezuzah kamashalim. He's paying back dates in the same value of a zuz, but he's not paying back more of a value than what he ate. So what's the big bracha that he should get for giving back more expensive fruits if it's the same value of the dried figs? Abaye says, no, there's no raya from here. I can say that he's paying back the value that it has. Why does this brayse say tovi olav bracha? The ochal midi the lekofetz aleisvini. Because he ate dried figs, which is not a hot item in the market. People don't jump to buy it. There's not a lot of buyers for this. And the commercial midi, the kafetz aleisvini. And he's paying back. True, he's paying back the same value, but yet it's something that there's a lot of buyers for this. So therefore, he is giving back something which is more valuable, something which is better. Now coming back to our Mishnah.
Double thing good.
Huh?
He's giving back double thing good.
He's
like
giving
better in essence,
Okay.
like money.
Okay, could be. I mean, the best in Essen, I'm not sure. Depends who you ask. Maybe for someone else, figs is maybe someone else likes figs better. But when you get to the value, when you get to the chshivas of the fruit, when you get to the market where people jump to buy it, so that's the milah that he has over here. Tanan, coming back now to our Mishnah. So to bring a raya from our Mishnah to this question. So the Mishnah said you ate truma, which was chametz on Pesach, b'sheigig, mishalem keren v'chaimish. So you have to pay the principle of what you ate and an additional chaimish. Now the question is, what kind of value does the chametz that you ate have on Pesach? It's chametz, has zero value. So if we're going to say that the chiyuv of returning the truma that you ate b'sheigig is you have to give back the same measure of what you ate, so shapir. We understand what our Mishnah is saying. True, it has no value, but still you have to give back the same measure of chametz that you ate. But if you say that you have to pay back the value of this chametz that you ate, chametz b'Pesach bar damamu, the chametz on Pesach has any value. So what you ate is worth zero, so you should be obligated to pay back zero. How could the Mishnah say that b'shegig you have to pay back the chametz? So answers the Gemara yes, the chametz on Pesach, I could say, does have value. And why is this? So here the Gemara brings an alternative shot in the Mishnah. Hamani Rabbi Yosi Aglili, the Mishnah could be following the opinion of Rabbi Yosi Aglili. The Omar, he says, as we had before a few times, chametz b'Pesach mutaba no. Chametz on Pesach, you're not allowed to have it in your possession, you're not allowed to eat it, but you are allowed to have hana of it. So therefore it does have a value, even on Pesach. That's why it says in the Mishnah that you have to pay back the keren and the chaimish. It does have value. If that's the pshat, so then what does it say in the seif of the Mishnah? You ate the truma b'mezid, so then you'll be potter from paying. Whether it's truma tahira, truma tameya, you'll be potter of paying any value of it, even if it could be used as fuel. You potter, but why are you potter? If our Mishnah is following the opinion of Rabbi Yosi Aglili, am I potter minat tashlumin? Why are you potter of paying from the value of this chametz? If you hold like Rabbi Yosi Aglili, you took something from the kain that had value to him. You could have had a of it. You could have used it as fuel. So why would you be potter when you ate it b'mezid? According to the first pshat, we explained that the difference between shegig and mezid is, shegig, there's a special halacha that you pay back the measure, even though you're not a gazlan and it has no value, but yet, by truma, you have to pay back the kodesh as a kapara, that you must give back the midah. But if you in the sefer where it's a mezid, you're just paying as a gazlan, so it has no value, you don't have to pay back. But now we're saying that we're going according to Rabbi Yosi Aglili, and you only have to pay lefidamin. Even regarding truma, you're paying lefidamin. So what's the difference between the Reisha and the Sefer? Why in the Reisha are we saying that you have to pay back because it has value, because it's like Rabbi Yosi Aglili, and the Sefer not? And it says the Gemara, the reason between the Reisha and the Sefer in our Mishnah is whether you would say Kam le b'derabba minei or not. We had this before. The Gemara says whenever you chayiv misa, so there's no chiyuv of payment. Over here, there's no chiyuv misa b'dei yadam, but when you eat truma b'mezid, that is, you chayiv misa b'dei shemayim. So therefore, our Mishnah holds like Rav Nechunya ben Akana, the Tanya Rav Nechunya ben Akana, haya oises yom kippurim ki Shabbos l'tashlumin. Rav Nechunya ben Akana said, just like on Shabbos, if you damage someone's property, and as you're damaging his property, you're also being machal Shabbos. The example is a person that's lighting someone else's property on fire. So you were machal Shabbos as you damage his property. I say, come live with the Rabbimene. Because you chayiv skila, you're not chayiv to pay. And Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana says the same thing applies to Yom Kippur, where there's a chiyuv of koris, which is a misa b'dei shemayim. So it also patters you. You're exempt of paying money for the damage that you caused. So the same thing applies over here. When you're eating the truma b'sheigeg, so then there is no misa b'dei shemayim. So it will not patter you of paying. But if you ate it b'mezid, eating truma b'mezid, you chayiv misa b'dei shemayim. So therefore, it'll patter you from paying. So we're following Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana's opinion. Ketanoi, now the Gemara brings and says this question that we had before: when you pay the produce of the truma, so you have to actually pay the produce. But the question is, how much? Is it according to the measure that you stole in the beginning, or is it the value? So this is actually a machlokes tanoim. Because we learned in the Braisa, it says, Oichel trumas chametz with Pesach. The first opinion in the Braisa says, you ate truma of chametz on Pesach, you potter minat tashlumin. So we're talking over even a person that ate it b'sheikik. You'd be potter from paying, may eitzim, you'd be potter of the value that it had as wood. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri mechayev. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says, like it said in our Mishnah, that you would be chayev. So this is the argument in a Braisa. And then the Braisa continues and says the discussion that Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri had about this. Amalei Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, v'chima no yesh libo. What kind of hana does this person have, does the Kayan have, from this chametz that the Yid is eating, that you're saying that he took something from the Kayan? The Kayan has no hana from this. So why does he have to pay it back? So Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri responds to Rabbi Akiva, if you have that question regarding chametz on Pesach, so you could have the same question regarding any truma tmeya that a Yid takes from a Kayan. If a Yid goes and eats truma which is tamei of a Kayan any day of the year, shemishalem, and over there you'll agree to me that he's obligated to pay. What did he take from the Kayan? If it's tamei, the Kayan can't use it. Amaloi, so Rabbi Akiva answers to him, no, how could you compare? That's not the same. If you go and take the truma tmeya of a kohen any day of the year, the kohen can't use it to eat it, but the kohen can use it as fuel for a lamp, for an oven, whatever it is. On Pesach, the chametz is asa b'achila and asa b'hana. So the kohen has nothing of it. So what did you take from the kohen? Eating the truma of the kohen, which is chametz on Pesach, what would this be compared to? The trumas tusim va'anovim. If a person is eating truma and he's taking the juice from berries or grapes, shenitma, that became tomei, she'ein leba loyat achila v'loyat asake. You can't eat it because it's tomei, and you can't use it for fuel of a fire because it's juice, it's wine, or it's liquid. You can't use it for a fire either. So in such a case, you took nothing from a kohen. So over here, what Rabbi Akiva is saying is that you took nothing from the kohen, and therefore you're not chayiv at all. Now the Brisa says b'chlal b'negeh to the truma of chametz that we were speaking about over here. B'med dvarim amurim, the truma of chametz that we're speaking about over here, that it's truma. When are we speaking about? B'mafresh truma v'chmitza. We're talking about truma that you were mafresh while it was not chametz, and then it became chametz on Pesach. Or you were mafresh it before, even as it was chametz, but before Pesach. That's what Rashi says. Aval mafresh trumas chametz. If you were mafresh truma that was already chametz, divrei hakol eini kedusha. It does not become truma at all. This detail, this b'med dvarim amurim, will be explained on the next daf in Mitzvah. We'll get back to that. But here we see an argument between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri regarding a person that ate the truma of a kohen b'shoigig, of the chametz on Pesach. Do you have to pay that back or not? What are they arguing about? So the Gemara is saying this is the machlokes tanoim going back to the ibaya that we had before. If you have to pay back lefi midah, the exact measure that you stole, the value doesn't matter, so then you have to pay it back in the same measure. But if it's the value that you have to pay back, chametz, it has no value whatsoever. That's the argument. Tan Yedach, the Gemara brings a different brayse where we again see this machlokes tanoim. Similar. So it says in the Brayse there, quotes a pasuk, "V'nasan lakayin as hakodesh." You pay back the kohen, the holy truma that you took from him. Davar haroy lekodesh. You pay back the kohen something that's fit to become kodesh. Prat leoichel trumas chametz bePesach. This excludes if you ate from a kohen truma of chametz on Pesach. Shapatim and tashlumim and midmei eitzim. You don't have to pay him back anything. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Eliezer ben Yaakov says, like the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, that you don't pay back anything. Rabbi Elazar Chisma says, like it said in our Mishnah, even if you eat it from the kohen chametz on Pesach truma, you do have to pay back. Amalei Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Rabbi Elazar ben Chisma, Rabbi Elazar Chisma, the same question that we had before. He asked him, "V'chima no yesh li ba?" Why would he have to pay back? The kohen has no anah of this chametz on Pesach. Amalei Rabbi Elazar Chisma, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Rabbi Elazar ben Chisma answers back to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, the same conversation like before. If so, ask the same question regarding any trumat meya that you eat from a kohen any day of the year, and there you are obligated to pay. Amaloi, so he answers back, how could you compare regarding trumat meya the rest of the year? You can't eat from it, but you could make a fire with it. But on Pesach, what could you use your chametz for? You can't use it not for a fire, you can't use it to eat, so therefore what did you take from the kohen? So therefore Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says that you're totally potter. Rabbi Elazar Chisma answers him, Af bezu yesh leiba heter asake. No, I disagree. Rabbi Elazar Chisma basically holds, like Rabbi Yossi Aglili, that chametz is mutter b'hana. It's asa b'achila, but it is mutter b'hana. It does have a heter asake. You can use it as fuel. Shem ratza akayin beritza lifnei kalbai. He actually could feed it for his dog. Or could use it as fuel for his fire, for food, to cook food with it. Okay, so these are two braises that we see over here that are arguing about this subject. If you eat truma tmei b'sheigig from a kohen, chametz on Pesach, are you obligated to pay back or not? Now the Gemara explains the opinions over here. Omar Abaye, says Abaye, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. These three opinions, kulu sviriluhu, they all hold chametz b'Pesach asa b'hana. That chametz on Pesach is totally asa b'hana, not like Rabbi Yossi Aglili. The only one in this brayse that we just read that said that chametz on Pesach is mutter b'hana was Rabbi Elazar Chisma. Rabbi Elazar Chisma says you can make a fire, you can feed it to your dog, but the rest of them hold that chametz on Pesach is asa b'hana. So what are they arguing about when they were arguing whether you have to pay back the truma or not? Well, Bahal Pligi, the argument is the question that we had before. That Rabbi Akiva savar lefi damim mishalem. Rabbi Akiva says the obligation to pay back is only the value of it. So therefore, Pesach, the chametz that's truma has no value, so you don't pay back anything. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri savar lefi midah b'shalem. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says no, you pay back the actual measure of the amount that you ate, even if it has no value. You have to give back that same measure, and therefore you have to pay even on Pesach, even if it had no value. That's what they're arguing about. Says the Gemara Pshita. Isn't this obvious that this is what their argument is about? Why does the Gemara have to come and spell this out? Says the Gemara, no, it's not so obvious. I would think to say, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri namike Rabbi Akiva svirelei. Maybe Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri does agree to Rabbi Akiva when it comes to the payment of truma, the amal lefi damim mishalem, that you're only paying the value of the truma. So why would you have to pay the chametz that has no value? Maybe Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri as well holds like Rabbi Elazar Chisma, and he holds like Rabbi Yosi Aglili, the Oma chametz with Pesach mutter b'hana. You have to pay back because the chametz with Pesach is mutter b'hana. Kamash Malan, therefore Abaye spells out and explains that Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri does not agree to Rabbi Yosi Aglili. He holds it's asa b'hana, but you still have to pay back the measure of what you took. That's what Abaye was teaching me. Says the Gemara, but ve'ema hachanami. Maybe it's true. Maybe Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri holds like Rabbi Yosi Aglili that the chametz is mutter b'hana. That's why he's arguing with Rabbi Akiva. Says the Gemara, no, it can't be, because in Kain had the lay Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri Rabbi Akiva, he should have responded to Rabbi Akiva, the conversation they had. He should have answered the same. Ki heichi de mahadale Rabbi Elazar Chisma Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. What did Rabbi Elazar Chisma tell Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov? It's mutter b'hana. You can give it to a dog. You can put it as fuel for your fire, for your food. That's not what Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri answered. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri said it has no value whatsoever, but still you have to pay back. So you see that the basis of Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri's shitta is lefi midah. You have to pay back the measure even if it has no value whatsoever. Tana Rabbanon, we learned in a Braisa another halacha b'nigeya to how you pay back the truma that the person ate b'sheigig. Ha'oichel kezayis truma. So here, this Braisa speaks about the minimum amount that you would be required to pay back. So if you ate a kezayis of truma, so then mishalem keren v'chaimish, you pay back the keren and the chaimish. So a kezayis is the minimum amount that you'd be obligated to pay for. Abishal says it's not a kezayis, but achi yehei by shava pruta. Kezayis is not how we value this, but it has to be at least the value of a shava pruta. That's how you value it. My time, what's the basis of their argument? My time, the Tanakama says, Omakra, when the Torah talks about paying back a person that ate b'sheigig, the truma of a kayin, the language the pasuk uses is v'ish ki yoichal kodesh b'shgaga. If you ate the kodesh, the truma b'sheigig. So the expression used here is yoichal, you ate. What's always the minimum amount that qualifies to be called ate? Achila. Achila b'kezayis, eating is a kezayis, so therefore you ate a kezayis, even if it's a tayach. Kezayis is a pretty small amount, and it probably doesn't even necessarily have the value of a shava pruta. You have to pay back the keren and the chaimish. Abishal my taima, what's the basis of Abishal's opinion that it has to be a shava pruta? Omakra v'nosan. The pasuk there right afterwards says v'nosan l'kainas hakadosh. You give back the kain, the truma that you ate. Ve'in nesina pachas m'shava pruta. The expression of nesina in the Torah means a shava pruta. Taisus actually points out that this is a chiddush because we do have the term nesina in the Torah that's not a shava pruta. For example, by a few places. One place Taisus brings is by a get. It says v'nosan sefer krisis. Over there, the get that you give does not have to have a value of a shava pruta. So we do find the term nesina less of a shava pruta. But here the Gemara says, Taisus explains that over here nesina means dafka shava pruta. So now the Gemara will explain each of the psukim according to the other opinion. V'idach nami aksiv yoichal. According to Abishal, doesn't it say yoichal? That means that it has to be a kezayis is enough. Says the Gemara, no, from the word yoichal I learn out something else. Ahu prat lemazik hu de asa. The chiyuv to pay back not only the principle that you ate, but also a additional chaimish is only if you ate it. Not if you went and just damaged it or destroyed it, ruined it. Then you pay back as a mazik, but you don't pay back the additional chaimish. Prat lemazik. The Tanakame and the Tanakame Hoksiv V'nosan. Why doesn't it have to be a value of a Shava Pruta if the Torah uses the expression of V'nosan? Hahu mi bayale l'dava haroy liyis kaidish. As we said before, when you pay back, you have to pay back not cash, but you have to pay back something which is roy to be kaidish, has to be grain, produce, something that the kedusha can be chal on it. That's what you learn out. But you don't learn out the amount of how much it is. The minimum is not a Shava Pruta, the minimum is a kazayis. Tana Rabbanan, the Gemara brings a braisa which speaks about this as well. Ha'oichel truma pachas mekazayis. You ate truma b'sheigig, and it was less than a kazayis. Mishalem es a keren, you pay back the keren. Ve'en mishalem es a chaimish. So you pay back only the keren and not a chaimish because it's less than a kazayis. So the halach of paying back a chaimish doesn't apply. So the Gemara now explains this braisa. Heichi dami, what is it speaking about? Either less pay shava pruta, if what he ate was less than a kazayis, and if it's less than a kazayis, you could probably assume that it was less than a shava pruta. Mamish, he ate like a crumb or something. So then, in such a case, keren nami loy l'shalem, you shouldn't have to pay anything, even by gzela. When you steal less than a shava pruta, you don't have to pay anything back. So why should he have to pay back anything? Why does it say he doesn't pay the chaimish? He shouldn't pay anything. V'ide is pay shava pruta. So you're going to tell me that this amount that he ate that was less than a kazayis was worth a pruta. Chaimish nami l'shalem. So you should pay a chaimish as well because it's a shava pruta. So if it's a shava pruta, you should be obligated to pay the chaimish. And says the Gemara, la'olam the is pay shava pruta. Really, what we're going to have to say over here is that this little amount that's less than a kazayis that he ate is worth a shava pruta. So Rashi says this is not so common. Usually such a tiny amount is not worth a shava pruta, but we're talking, let's say, in a hungry year, where a tiny amount of food, the inflation rises so high that it's worth a shava pruta. Even the less pay kazayis, since there's no kazayis here, mishalem es a keren, ve'ena mishalem es a chaimish. You only pay the keren and you do not pay the chaimish. Whose opinion is this following? As the Gemara is going to say right now, this is the opinion of the Rabbanon that say that it has to be at least a kazayis. So Amru Rabbanon kamed Rav Papa. So the Rabbanon explained this brayso. They taught this brayso in front of Rav Papa, and they said, "Ho the loy kabishol." This brayso is not like Abba Shaul's opinion. The Ika Abba Shaul, if it would follow Abba Shaul's opinion, ha'oma, what did Abba Shaul say? Kiven sheyesh ba shava pruta, as long as it has the value of a shava pruta, afagav the less pay a kazayis, even though it's not worth a kazayis, still you would have to pay back the keren and the chaimish. According to Abba Shaul, what do you look at regarding keren and chaimish? If it's a shava pruta or not if it's a kazayis or not. So this brayso is not going like Abba Shaul. Amalu Rav Papa, so Rav Papa commented to his students and said, no, full of time Abba Shaul. This brayso could follow Abba Shaul's opinion. Abba Shaul tarti boy. When Abba Shaul said it has to be a shava pruta, what Abba Shaul actually meant to say is it has to be at least the amount of a kazayis, and in addition, also a shava pruta. Generally speaking, usually a shava pruta is more than a kazayis. So what Abba Shaul was saying is it has to be both a kazayis and a shava pruta. In this unusual circumstance where it's less than a kazayis and it's still worth a shava pruta, Abba Shaul would not hold that you have to pay a chaimish. That's what Rav Papa said about this. Fragt the Gemara, but v'hatnan, Abba, we learned befeidish in the Mishnah, Abba Shaul Omer, Abba Shaul says, es sheyesh by shava pruta, a person that stole from Truma. He ate the truma and b'sheigig. So what did Abba Shaul say? If it has a shava pruta, chayiv b'tashlumin. So then you have to pay the keren and the chaimish. Es she'ein b'shava pruta. If it does not have the value of a shava pruta, ein a chayiv b'tashlumin. You don't have to pay. Omru loy. They said to him, no, loy omru shava pruta el le'inyim me'ila b'lvad. The value of a shava pruta was only regarding not truma, regarding hektish. The halacha of me'ila, when you misuse hektish, there the halacha of me'ila only applies if it's a shava pruta. Aval truma en chayiv atshei by kazayis. By truma, you're not going to be chayiv unless it's the amount of a kazayis. That's what the Rabbanan responded to him. It has to be a kazayis. That's the only thing that's negeya, but not a shava pruta. V'im, he said, now if Rav Papa is right, that even according to Abba Shaul, it's both. It has to be both a kazayis and a shava pruta. Kivin sheyesh by kazayis mi bayale. So then the Chachamim shouldn't be saying to him until it will be a kazayis. They should be saying to him that you're only going to be chayiv because it has the shear of a kazayis. When Abba Shaul said in the beginning of the Mishnah that you chayiv because it's a shava pruta, according to Rav Papa, you must be speaking about that it was both a shava pruta and the kazayis. It has to be both. So why would the Rabbanan be responding that you're not going to be chayiv unless it's going to be a kazayis? It definitely was a kazayis, because when Abba Shaul said you chayiv for a pruta, it has to be both a kazayis and a shava pruta. So over here you see, not like what Rav Papa said, to Yufte. So this refutes what Rav Papa said, that according to Abishol, it has to be both a Kazayas and a Shava Pruta. The Gemara now will bring in the Hemshech over here that Rav Papa himself retracted what he himself said. We'll see Mitzvah Shem tomorrow.